Hello everyone. So this video is going to be the first in a series that I'm going to produce all about my favourite settings and my favourite features of the Sony FX3. So I've been using the FX3 for a few weeks now, and one of the things I really love about using this camera is the way the Sony have designed the flexible exposure mode. Now that's the default setting in the camera. So someone like me who came from a Sony a7S II might not realise that the way you go about controlling exposure can be slightly different with this camera. Okay, so let's look at the actual buttons on the camera. On the top near the shutter release. Now we're not going to cover white balance here because that's not really an exposure setting as such. What we're really going to be looking at is the iris button, the ISO button, and the shutter button, which by default is on the back, and it's on the bottom of the rear dials. So in flexible exposure mode, each of those three buttons have got two functions. The first one is locking that setting, so I'll show you how that works now. So we'll begin by looking at the iris. If I press the button, you'll notice that the lock symbol appears on the display briefly. That now means that control is locked. And when I try to turn it, the lock symbol appears on the screen. If I press that again and unlock it, you'll see that now does allow me to adjust it. Same applies to the other two controls as well. So I can press ISO, adjust that using the control wheel on the back from my settings. And again, lock it if I don't want it to change. And the same with shutter speed on the dial wheel on the back. Okay, so the second thing you can do with each of these buttons is switch that exposure control into auto. Now you do that by pressing and holding the button. So if I press and hold the iris button, you can see that switches to auto by the little A symbol that appears on the screen next to the aperture. Again, this works the same with ISO and by pressing and holding shutter speed. One of the things I've found with the FX3 is that if you use two functions or even all three of the exposure controls set to auto, the camera does a really good job of deciding when to change each of those settings. So let's switch all three modes to automatic. Now as we decrease the amount of light in the shot, you'll see that the same thing applies. So it decreases the aperture first, goes down to f2.8, and then the ISO will start to go up. Now, once the ISO reaches the max limit, it will also start to decrease the shutter speed as well, if it can. In this instance, it can only go down to 1/25th of a second because obviously our frame rate is 25th of a second, so it can't go any lower than that. But likewise, when we brighten the image again, you'll notice the shutter speed. It will go back first to 50, then the ISO will start to come down, followed by the aperture going back up again. So this is really nice the way this works. You'll notice that my ISO is currently going between 100 and 2000. Now I've got this set for shooting in S-Cinetone. That's because ISO 100 is one base level and ISO 2000 is the high base level. If you go into the ISO settings screen where you choose which ISO you want to be at using the menu, and you notice on the right hand side of the screen there's two boxes. You've got set minimum, set maximum. So you can set those in there. And that's what the camera will use when it's adjusting using auto ISO. I hope that was useful. I'm going to do some more videos showing my favourite features of the FX3 soon. And so if you've got any questions or comments and something you'd like to see covered in a video, then yeah, just shout and I'll definitely try and get that done for you. If you could subscribe to the channel, that would be awesome. I mean, there's quite a few people watching these videos now, but still my subscriber count's really low. So yeah, that'd be really appreciated if you could just go and like the video and subscribe. But other than that, I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.